Saturday mornings in my neighborhood are usually peaceful. Birds chirping, sprinklers hissing, neighbors pretending they enjoy mowing lawns. And me? I was enjoying the most beautiful machine ever created by mankind. My ATV. Now listen, I don't use it to terrorize the neighborhood. I ride it sometimes on trails outside town, occasionally around my own driveway, and mostly I just stare at it like a proud father staring at a very loud child. So that morning, I had it parked in my driveway, clean, shiny, majestic, which meant, of course, Karen had already noticed it. Across the street, standing with her coffee mug and binocular-level judgment, was HOA Karen herself. And when Karen notices something, a complaint is loading. I was wiping the dust off the seat when I heard the familiar voice. You know those aren't allowed here. I didn't even turn around yet, 'cause I knew that tone, Karen tone. I slowly looked over my shoulder. There she was, arms crossed, hair shaped like a warning sign. I asked, "Morning, Karen." She ignored the greeting entirely. "That vehicle," she continued dramatically, pointing like she had discovered a war crime, "does not belong in a residential community." I glanced at the ATV, then back at her. "It belongs to me," I said. She squinted. "That's not the point." Of course it wasn't. With Karen, the point is never the point. Karen stepped closer, holding her phone like it was a badge of authority. "I'm documenting this," she said. Of course she was. She took photos, front angle, side angle, one where she crouched like a wildlife photographer studying a rare beast. I asked, "What rule does it break?" And she delivered one of the longest dramatic one-liners I've ever heard. "Recreational motor vehicles," she announced proudly, "cannot be stored in visible areas where they may disrupt the aesthetic serenity of the neighborhood." Aesthetic serenity. It's an ATV, Karen, not a dragon. I shrugged. "It's temporary." She raised a finger. Temporary violations are still violations. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Because right then, Karen's daughter walked out of their house. Her name was Ashley, teenager, probably around 17. And the moment she saw my ATV, her eyes lit up, like a kid spotting a free puppy. She walked over. "That thing is awesome," she said. "Finally, a normal human being." "Thanks," I replied. Karen immediately snapped, "Ashley, don't encourage him." "Encourage him? It's a machine, not a rebellion." Ashley ignored her. "How fast does it go?" she asked. Karen interrupted before I could answer. "It goes away," she declared. Karen turned back to me and delivered the classic HOA ultimatum. "If that vehicle remains here," she warned dramatically, "the board will hear about it." I nodded. Because in HOA neighborhoods, everything ends with "the board will hear about it." I said calmly, "Karen, it's my driveway." She shook her head like a disappointed principal. "This community has standards." Then she marched back inside. Ashley stayed a moment longer, staring at the ATV. "You ever let anyone ride it?" she asked. I laughed. "Not today." I should have realized something right there, because the way she looked at it was not admiration. It was planning. Later that afternoon, I went inside to grab lunch. 10 minutes. That's all I was gone. When I came back out, my driveway looked wrong. You know that feeling when something is missing, but your brain hasn't caught up yet? Yeah. The ATV, gone. I stood there staring at empty concrete. "Okay," I said out loud. "This is new. Now I'm not the kind of guy who jumps to conclusions, but let's review the evidence." Karen hates the ATV. Karen's daughter loves the ATV. Karen's daughter was staring at it like it owed her money. So I walked across the street, knocked on Karen's door. She opened it with the smile of someone who already knows what you're about to say. "Yes?" she asked sweetly. I kept it simple. "My ATV disappeared." She shrugged. "That sounds like a police matter." Interesting response. Very interesting. Right then we heard it. The sound. A loud engine roaring somewhere down the street. And suddenly, here comes Ashley, riding my ATV, full throttle, like she's starring in an action movie. She pulled into her driveway and hopped off. Karen turned pale. I crossed my arms. Ashley looked between us and said the most casual sentence imaginable. I borrowed it. Borrowed. Without asking. Without telling. Without returning. I looked at Karen. She looked at Ashley. Ashley looked proud. Then Karen delivered the most unbelievable one-liner. She assumed it was community property. Community property. My ATV, that I paid for, parked in my driveway, apparently now part of socialism. I took a deep breath. "Karen," I said slowly, "your daughter stole my ATV." Karen gasped. "Don't use such aggressive language." Aggressive language. The machine literally left my driveway. Ashley shrugged. I was bringing it back. I pointed to the tire marks leading down the street. "After doing laps around the neighborhood?" Karen raised her voice. "Are you accusing my daughter of a crime?" Yes. Yes, I was. And things were about to get a lot more interesting. Because someone had already called the police, and the patrol car was turning onto our street. The patrol car rolled slowly onto our street. Lights off, calm. The officer probably expecting something normal. Instead, he saw 3 adults standing in a driveway and a teenager sitting on an ATV that clearly didn't belong there. He stepped out of the car and asked the question that always starts these situations. "All right, what's going on here?" I pointed calmly. "That's my ATV." Ashley raised a hand like she was answering a classroom question. "I borrowed it." The officer blinked. "You borrowed it?" Ashley nodded confidently. Karen jumped in immediately with her dramatic defense speech. "My daughter," she declared proudly, "simply assumed the vehicle was available for shared neighborhood recreational use." The officer looked at her, then at me, then back at her, and I watched him slowly process the sentence, shared neighborhood ATV. The officer turned to me. "Sir, did you give her permission?" "No." He turned to Ashley. "Did you ask?" Ashley looked at Karen. Karen looked at the sky. Ashley finally muttered, "No." Case closed, right? Not in Karen court. Karen immediately stepped forward and delivered one of the longest dramatic one-liners I've ever heard in my life. "My daughter," she announced, "was simply correcting the inappropriate storage of a recreational vehicle that violated HOA visual harmony standards." The officer paused. I swear I could see him asking himself why he didn't become a park ranger instead. The officer crossed his arms. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "that's not how borrowing works." Karen gasped like he had insulted her bloodline. "Are you accusing my daughter of theft?" The officer responded with the calmest, most devastating sentence imaginable. "I'm explaining the definition." Ashley suddenly looked less confident. I added helpfully, "She took it without asking." Karen spun toward me. "You left it outside?" "Yes, in my driveway, where most people leave their vehicles." The officer turned to Ashley. "You can't take someone else's vehicle without permission." Ashley nodded slowly. Karen looked furious. But he violated HOA rules first, she insisted dramatically, by storing that machine where it could be seen. The officer rubbed his temples. Ma'am, HOA rules are not criminal law. Boom. Karen looked personally betrayed. Karen delivered one last theatrical speech. If residents begin hoarding recreational equipment in driveways, she declared, we will descend into mechanical chaos. Mechanical chaos. Over an ATV. The officer finally sighed and said the sentence that ended the debate. Your daughter needs to return the vehicle immediately. Ashley slowly pushed the ATV toward my driveway. Karen watched like someone witnessing injustice. I thought that was the end. Oh no, Karen never ends a battle. She schedules the sequel. 2 days later, the HOA mailed me a violation notice. Apparently, my ATV had been reported for disrupting neighborhood aesthetics. Fine amount? $400. I stared at the letter. Then I laughed, because Karen had just made the biggest mistake of the entire story. The board meeting was packed. Neighbors, board members. Karen sitting in the front row like she was about to win an award. The HOA president began. We're here regarding the complaint about recreational vehicle storage. Karen stood up immediately. This resident, she declared, pointing at me dramatically, has turned his driveway into a motorsport facility. Motorsport facility. I ride it twice a month. But okay. I stood up slowly and placed a document on the table. City ordinance, I said calmly. The president read it, then blinked, because the rule was simple. ATVs can legally be stored in private driveways, meaning no violation. Karen's face slowly changed color. Karen stood up again. This is outrageous, she shouted. One board member whispered, the city law overrides HOA interpretation. Karen pointed at me. He provoked my daughter. The room went quiet, provoked, by owning something. The president cleared his throat. The fine is dismissed. And then he added something even better. And residents should not interfere with property that does not belong to them. Karen froze. Ashley stared at the floor. Victory. Later that evening, I sat in my driveway, looking at my ATV, safe, untouched. Across the street, Karen closed her blinds. And that's when I realized something. In HOA neighborhoods, you don't need action movies. You just need one Karen.